Hello, everybody.
Hello.
This is Matt Frad and Cameron Bertuzzi sitting far too close to each other.
True.
So
we only have one microphone, so that's part of the reasons
right.
why we're doing this.
Okay, so
Should we check audio levels? Did we do that?
Nikes. Yep. It's working on the stone. It's taken from the right mic.
Okay. Cool. Yeah.
But what's this though?
There it goes. Yeah, there it goes.
Welcome everybody. Today we are going to be processing Cameron Bertuzzi's first experience of a Catholic liturgy,
Which we just got out of like 3 hours ago.
Yeah. So we just went, and immediately after liturgy, I said to Cameron, "Shh! Don't tell me. Don't say anything. We have to process it all live for the people." So even though this thumbnail is of a beautiful traditional Latin Mass, I actually took Cameron Bertuzzi to my Byzantine Catholic Church to Divine Liturgy there, and
Which is really cool.
Yeah, so it's his first experience. So I don't know how we want to do this.
Well, we have a bunch of photos queued up. So
Yeah.
I'm a photographer, and so one of the things that I did when I got there was, I just took some photos on my phone, and of things that were kind of interesting. Didn't really know what it was. So as we pull them up, as you like show a picture, I can kind of explain why I took that picture, and that'll help explain, given a reaction.
Awesome. And then everybody who isn't aware, Cameron Bertuzzi is...
I run a YouTube channel called Capturing Christianity, and I interview philosophers and host discussions between Christians and non-Christians on my channel. It's very ecumenical. Matt and I have been in conversation many times, including once on my show too. So yeah, that's what I do. So if you like Matt's show, you'll probably end up liking mine too.
His hair is like mine, but Protestant and with better hair. All right. So, actually, before we look into these photos...
if you do this with the microphone...
Oh, sorry.
I don't think they're going to be able to hear both of us.
Okay, I'll do that.
Okay.
Before we look at the individual photos, I would love just to hear your just first thoughts. What was it like? What did you like? What did you not like? What was weird? What did you understand? All that.
I don't know if I can get... So, part of what I have processed, I have it sort of systematized in my mind, and I've saved some of my comments for like when the picture comes up, it'll probably bring something out.
Okay.
So
sure, we can do that.
So we can get into the pictures, and I think that'll help.
Okay.
Give some of the thoughts, but I'll start by saying that for some reason, I really like the chanting, is it chanting?
Yeah.
Or like because you were telling me that that's not normal, right? Like chanting?
Right, yeah. So obviously within the Catholic Church, there's different churches that are in communion with Rome. I go to an Eastern Catholic Church, and 95% of the liturgy is chanted. If you go to Latin Mass or a Roman Mass, it's not like that. There's a lot more kind of silence, so it's a bit different. By the way, everybody, we're going to be taking your questions for Cameron and what his experience was of the Mass and why he hasn't just friggin' converted already. But before we get to that, why don't we look at some of these photos and you can tell us what you were thinking. All right, so
yeah.
And so everybody's going to see these beautiful photos from my church. Here we go.
Yeah, and we're just going to, we just put all this together, so forgive the setup here.
It's pretty raw.
You're still going to be able to see our hands on the side here. Mm-hmm. Hello. All right, so this is just one of the doors. And
it's a great bloody door, isn't it?
It's a great door. It's green, and it's beautiful. I actually really like the design of it, and we even took some portraits of you in front of it. Mm-hmm. So that's all there is to say about that. That's the door.
All right, what about that?
This is a question I have for you. What is up with the colorful
I don't really know, except to say that it is in the Byzantine style. There's a lot of...
Okay.
One of the beautiful things about a Eastern Catholic Church is it immediately engages all of your senses. So the first thing you said to me, Cameron, when we walked in is like, it smells good in here.
Yes, yeah, the incense.
Yeah.
Right?
So you've got incense, you've got candles, you've got chanting, you've got bowing, you've got vibrant colors, you've got iconography. So that's one of the spires, I guess you'd say, on top of our church. And your son actually pointed it and
he said, "This is a house or something."
Yeah, he said, "Look, it's a house on top of the house," or something like that. Okay.
All right. Next picture is, I think of. So this was just the service right when I got in, and what I was noticing was the front of it. One thing that was really interesting to me is on the very right of this picture. It's like a gate, right? And so I didn't understand why. Sometimes they would go through the middle here, right behind them, and sometimes they would go through the gates on the side.
So this gate, this whole wall here is called the Iconostasis, or the icon wall. And the priest, Father Lewis, comes through the...
So the priest is which guy? The guy
So that's
right here?
he's a deacon on the photo right
Okay.
now, and he'll go through the side doors.
So the priest was
He was the one with the
younger guy?
beard, yeah.
Interesting.
And so he comes through the middle. And so it's kind of like that's heaven, we're on earth, and the Father comes through to us to meet us, to proclaim the word, to feed us with
And
Eucharist.
what is the gate then?
Well, this is the gate that the deacons and the altar servers go through.
Uh-huh. Well, why do they go through that and not the center?
Because it's not as important and cool looking.
Oh, okay.
And this is a deacon here. Is it Stephen? Anyway.
You can't zoom in,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
So is that...
Yeah, so that's what kind of stuck out of my mind as the preceding processional. What do you call it? As the liturgical ceremony was happening.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the things that I noticed. I'm so awful at
No, you're great.
explaining these things.
All right, what's this one? This is just a photo. I got to point this out. I thought this would be funny if Cameron's first experience of going to a Catholic liturgy was kind of slightly post-COVID, and it would be funny if he went back and told all of his Protestant friends about how everyone had to stand 6 feet apart and wear masks and there were arrows on the ground. If you just thought like this is just part of what Catholics do. You're not allowed to sit pew to pew. There has to be a pew separating you. That would have been funny. But clearly that's because of COVID.
All right, let me pause real quick because I see a comment here from CDC.
This one?
Yeah, you can put that up on the broadcast. Get that picture out of here so we can see each other. So I thought this was a really good question. They said, did Cameron feel offended when you told... no one told me this. I just assumed that this was the case.
I think I told you last night.
Yeah, maybe so. And I wasn't paying attention. No, I just knew that was the case. And it was also interesting to see it happening and be like, these people really think that this is, the flesh and blood of Jesus, even though it doesn't look that way, obviously. And that's perfectly consistent on the Catholic view. So it was interesting for me to be there and to watch it. To me, it's like it's very reverent. And so I was not, I didn't get offended at it at all. I was thinking it'd be cool if I could take part of this.
Yeah.
But it didn't offend me at all. But I thought it was cool.
I think it would be an understandable thing for someone to feel kind of a little put out, like, because it is kind of like, you can't come, you can't do this thing that we're all doing.
Yeah.
So it would be understandable if there was a sort of but I don't think there should be, because it's not just people who aren't Catholic. It's Catholics who are in a state of serious sin, who need to go to confession prior to receiving, or people who don't believe in the Eucharist who might be Catholic shouldn't be receiving. Like Joe Biden was recently, though he's a Catholic, denied Holy Communion because of his support of abortion, public support of abortion, which I thought was really cool. All right, and when I say cool, I mean helpful, just helpful.
Yeah.
It's not good to allow people who are in a state of serious sin, public sin, to approach the Eucharist. All right, that's the outside.
So this is just the outside of the church, and it's it's a cool looking building. There's not a whole lot to say other than you can still see those colors, and I just thought those were really cool. I didn't really know if they represented something very specific or what, but
they might, and I don't know.
Yeah, no, it may just be architectural. It's just how they did it back in the day.
Yeah.
So yeah.
All right.
So
What else we got here?
This was inside, right around, like, I think to the right when you walk through the doors, the main doors. So what is this?
So this little, what do you call it, rug here is something that we process on Good Friday.
What do you mean process?
Well, we'll process it around the church. It'll be like a public procession, and then we'll keep it by the iconostasis, and we'll keep vigil throughout the night. So there's actually a 24-hour prayer service where people are staying up throughout the night praying, almost as if we were the disciples who were waiting for Christ to rise.
Kind of morning.
And so that's just placed there, I think, because they didn't have any other place for it. But it also looks beautiful.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's it.
Yeah.
The question was, what is that?
Okay.
So this was just more of the service, and
Hey, okay, here's something really cool about this incense that you may not have known. Notice
is he holding it right now?
he may not be, actually.
But yeah, it was okay. Go ahead.
Well, the incense thing has 12 bells on it for the 12
Yeah,
apostles.
The bells were. I was wondering about.
Yeah.
The bells. Okay. Interesting.
For 12 apostles, and if I understand correctly, one of them does not have a bell thing within it because it represents Judas.
Weird.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
No, I'm just.
Yeah, no, it is. It
That's
is.
a word
It's,
that I use.
it's definitely different. There's the holy water font. So this is used for baptisms.
Okay, this was on the left, right, when you walked through.
Yep. What else do we got here?
Mhm.
Oh, we've done that one.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot more, I don't think.
All
Yeah,
right.
so this was just right when you walked in.
Right.
Didn't know what that was either.
Right. This is obviously an icon of we call it the Theotokos, which is Greek for God bearer, holding Christ. And when we come in, it's traditional to bow 3 times.
Okay.
And then you say, "God, be merciful to me, a sinner." You say that 3 times, and there's a lot of kissing. I don't think there's been as much because of COVID.
But you also do the chant, though, right? Do you do the chant while you're doing the bows?
No, I wouldn't.
Oh, okay.
I wouldn't.
Do you do it
no.
under your breath or what?
Yeah, I would just say, "God, be merciful to me, a sinner," just like
Okay.
that. And then I would kiss Christ and the Blessed Mother. And sometimes I'd go up and light a candle up there by St. Nicholas,
Okay.
who is the patron saint of the Byzantine Catholic Church.
Oh,
and,
I wanted to say
and
something
also
about
Father
that.
Christmas.
This seems super mundane, but there's a point of that
Oh,
one.
yeah?
Pull up the previous one.
Sure.
Okay, so one thing that I noticed with the icons is they're all in the style of like the very long nose.
Yes, and there's a reason for that.
Tell me that.
Okay, so the reason for the long nose is that they draw in the Holy Spirit. That's the meaning of it. The small mouth is meant to indicate humility. There are usually larger ears to represent a receptivity.
And the long nose is like breathing.
It's something to do with sniffing in the Holy Spirit. I'm
Okay.
pretty sure it's put way better than that when someone who knows what they're talking about says it. Sniffing in the Holy Spirit.
I like to
Now,
sniff the
these
Holy
you'll
Spirit.
always see 3 stars on the Theotokos, which represent that Mary was virgin before, during, and
Oh,
after
okay,
her
weird.
birth.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm saying weird just because.
No, it's fine.
I don't.
And then this means Mother of God up here.
Okay.
And this is beautiful.
In what language?
Greek.
Greek.
And here, this is a very beautiful icon because you have angels here. Everyone who's watching this video can see now to the left and to the right of the Theotokos, you have the angels holding up the instruments of torture. And here, one of the sandals is usually, I'm not sure if in this one it's the case, a sandal has slipped from the foot of Christ. And so the story behind this, and of course it's a pious story, it's a way of thinking about what it may have been like, is that Christ as a child had a dream about how he would save humanity and ran to his mother for comfort. But Mary, rather than pulling her into herself, presents him to the world as the sacrifice. Also, you have red and blue, which is very significant. The blue represents earth, the red represents heaven, and so here you have Mary, who is clearly just a human being, but the Holy Spirit coming upon her and conceiving within her womb the second person of the Blessed Trinity.
Yeah, and I remember you pointing out last night that when you see Jesus, it's the opposite, right? He's wearing
Usually.
red,
So if
blue
you
drape.
see over here, right, blue drape, red Christ, the iconostasis, everybody, that's what we're talking
in the
about.
very back.
And so you've got Mary, who's got red on top of blue, and Christ, who has blue on top of red, because he took upon himself, to himself, a human nature. Okay. Or did you want...
Okay, yeah. So this
Oops, sorry.
So this question is this where like the priest lives?
Yep.
Okay. Because it says rectory and office, but I just assumed that they lived on the premises.
Yep.
Premises.
Yep.
So what do they do there? They just
Well, I know they just
read,
live.
prepare.
Watch TV, drink coffee, sleep, you know. He also has his office at the front of that house.
Oh, okay. For
But
like just meetings and
Yeah, and just paperwork and writing his homilies and things like that.
Okay.
He's got... I should take you there next time. Father Lewis, very good saintly priest. Lots of icons everywhere. He's got a beautiful icon corner where he prays. And, yeah. Now, some Eastern Catholic priests are married, but Father chose not to be, so he's a celibate priest, and so he lives on his own there.
Okay.
All right.
There might be more.
Yeah, let's have a look what else we got. That's him.
That was just another
Homily.
Let's see if the other one.
Oh, we've seen that, I think.
So I think all of these are going to be
Okay.
duplicates at this point. There
Yep.
was one other picture that I just didn't share it with you, but it was a very pretty picture of. I mean, it was just a pretty building.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
a beautiful, and it's so simple.
Nice.
It's really
Yeah,
simple.
Yeah, it is. And the inside too. It reminded me a lot of like. I don't know. I was gonna say it reminds me of like the 3rd or 4th century, but I can't be reminded of a time that I never.
Yeah,
lived.
or maybe
So-
things like you see from
Yeah, in
pictures
movies.
a long time ago or something.
Movies too.
Yeah, but so it's kind of different, right? Because I mean, this has kind of been your first experience. I called it Catholic Mass on the YouTube channel because I figured that was a lot more. I didn't want to say first experience of a divine liturgy because I figured a lot of people wouldn't know what that meant.
Yeah, right.
So I could have taken you to a Latin Mass. Like, there were different kind of expressions of it. But did you have anything else to share about your experience of it before we?
So one thing that I really liked is that it's all very, very reverent, and I think that that's what's missing in Protestant churches. Is that it's not as so the Eucharist, the whole communion ceremony was very, very reverent, and to me, if I really believed that this was Jesus' body and blood, I think I would take that a lot more seriously than just this is a symbol of whatever it is.
Sorry, continue.
No, I just thought that in addition to like all the praying and bowing and sitting down and standing up at various times, like. That can kind of seem tedious, especially when you have like kids running around and they're like getting bored or whatever. But I just think it's very good to do that. I think I just felt like is a good thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's good to have these kinds of.
Yeah, it's funny. I think in the past when I've had an evangelical friend of mine attend Mass, there had been an unrealistic expectation on my behalf that the beauty is just going to bowl them over. And I remember that just not being the case. And so I think I said to you, I'm like, you don't have to come.
The beauty of what? The
liturgy, the reverence of it, the chanting, the candles, the incense. But I think what I said to you is like, this is just going to be weird. Like it is going to be weird because it's unlike anything you've probably gone to before, and that's okay. It was sort of weird for us the first time we attended. Like we didn't know what to do. When do you stand? When do you sit? What do you say? How do you use this book? So,
yeah, I think that was the biggest thing that stood out to me was the fact that it was so reverent, and I think that's missing.
But do you have different Protestant sort of services that would be more reverent than others?
I think so.
Are there some who are trying to bring back a sort of liturgical worship?
Well, here's the sort of question that I have for you, and that one is, are there Protestant churches or services that you look at and you're like, this is super weird. Like, why are you guys up there acting like you're putting on a concert, basically, Like that's the kind of impression I was getting. Is like, this is just like a community of people like worshiping God. Like that's the impression that I got, right? As opposed to like when you go to a Protestant church and it's like this big concert and these guys are like up there playing guitars and everything. I'm not saying that any of that's wrong. I'm just saying that it gives a different impression to me. And I, as someone who like played guitar and sang on stage and stuff, I know that there's like an ego element to that. It's like you want to be up there playing and people listening to you and stuff. And so it just felt like instead of being about us, this was more about like God.
Thank you. Yeah, that's a good point. And did you notice that the priest, some people would mistakenly say he had his back to the people, but really he's facing with the people. And every
interesting.
Yeah, and every Eastern church faces east. It's built that way.
Oh.
And it faces east because that's where the sun rises. And so we're facing sort of the hope of our salvation. Mm-hmm. And I think there is something in that. Like if you're forced to face with the people so that the congregation see your back, there's naturally just like a different sort of psychological thing taking place. You're not as interested in entertaining people.
Yeah.
You probably got that. Like Father didn't seem at all interested in making this more kind of sexy or something for the people.
Yes. That's a good way to put it. He wasn't interested. The whole service wasn't about like, let's make this as sexy as possible.
And as fun.
And it's fun.
So when you said to me, like, what do I think? Well, what I think is...
Yeah, when you see churches, Protestant churches,
what's funny,
put an emphasis on that. Lighting and fog and...
Because we do things like that, but we just call them concerts.
Okay.
So it's not like I haven't been to something like that until I went to a mega church.
Yeah.
Rather, it's that we do have nights of praise and worship within the Catholic space and big talks that go on with lights and drums and someone gives a presentation. So that's kind of very similar to many, not all, but some Protestant churches. But it certainly takes the pressure off. I remember hearing one Protestant pastor saying every week you have to wow your congregation. You have to like exceed their expectations. I thought that just sounds exhausting. But
it does.
But then I also remember hearing of that person who sang that song, "When the music fades and all is stripped away," which many people know. I think what actually happened is they became aware that it was very much about the feelings of worship and praise, and so they took out all the music for a certain amount of time before bringing it back just so this would be about God, not about us and our emotional response, which I thought was really cool.
That's good. Before we move to questions, should we talk about our potential channel?
Yeah.
So Matt and I, the reason why we're together right now and possibly a lot more in the future is because we're thinking about starting a new YouTube channel together where we basically react to different things. So this is not, I don't think this will really be what the new channel will be about, but we are thinking of it being more of like a review or react channel. So reacting to all sorts of different things. I don't know how much detail we want to give away at this point.
Well, we're not even really terribly sure of what we want to react to. So as Cameron said, we want to create a separate YouTube channel where the two of us are just sort of responding to things. And it could be a whole variety of things. And we'd really love to know what you would have us respond and react to in the comment section below. It might be things like going to a Protestant service, or even reading a Babylon Bee article, or looking at a particular Christian comedian, or something to do with apologetics. I want it to be more lighthearted and fun, I think. But
yeah. It can be about kind of anything, but the object of it would be a little bit more lighthearted. Wouldn't be so serious all the time. Yeah. It's not to say that we're always serious, but anyways, you get the point.
So that's what we're looking at.
Yeah. So if y'all are interested in seeing a channel like that, let us know in the comments. I'll check them out too. But we're just throwing around this idea right now. We're both going to pray about it and think about it a whole lot more and figure out if this is something that we want to do. So that's part of the reason why we're hanging out today. And over the weekend, our family's just been hanging out. It's been a great time.
Yeah, it has been real fun.
Yeah.
All right.
So we can get to some comments.
We'd love to get some comments. You might have a question for Cameron or a question for me, or feel free. And then if we like your question, we'll throw it up on the video so people can actually read it, and we'll do our best.
That's a good one. Cameron reacts to Trent Horn videos on Catholicism.
Yeah.
I would just debunk him all the time.
Yeah, just smash him. And you would have a plate for every point you smashed, and you would smash the plate on the table and say, "Boo yeah," and then proceed to something else. Let's see.
Well, it looks like people are interested in seeing this new channel. So
listen to this, though, what Brando says. React to something other than each other's sectarian differences.
Yeah, we were already thinking about doing that. We didn't want to just focus on Protestant versus Catholic. However, that could give us like an interesting
take on certain things.
Well, yeah, it would give us an interesting point of view. A channel like this would be interesting.
What about this from Caden?
D&D sessions. I was telling him that one of the reasons I would move out here is to play D&D, like we did that one night.
Yeah.
So I would definitely.
That was pretty cool. I met Cameron, and the next night we were playing D&D and smoking cigars. Nothing like getting to know each other. Here you go. Here's a question.
There you go.
Laurelie Monterey says, Cameron, do you think you might become Catholic?
Might is a good way of phrasing that, and the answer is yes, might become Catholic. We're in the process right now of doing these debates on various issues, and so far the only one we've done is on the Eucharist.
Yeah, and you lost that one, right?
I won that one. Well, so I just basically started my investigation into Protestant versus Catholic doctrine, and should I say that I'm ashamed of that? I don't think I should. Of just started, like, because I've been a Christian my whole life, and I'm just now like getting serious about.
Well, it's sort of like doctrine. A Catholic or a Protestant may not have investigated why it is they believe what they believe until somebody challenges it. So I think it's
yeah. Well, either way, I'm rectifying that at this time. So I'm trying to approach these debates and these discussions. Really, they're just dialogues between us, as open as I can, with the realization that I do have bias. I grew up Protestant, and it would be a pretty big, significant change if I became Catholic. I don't think it would be that big of a deal in the sense of, like, we wouldn't lose any subscribers, I don't think. Or
believe me, you would gain all of mine.
Well,
quick way to make some.
No, so I don't have like a whole lot of reason to not be open to it. But on the Eucharist question, I did come down on the side of not thinking that it taught transubstantiation, which I think could be overturned if I became convinced that the papacy, in the whole, like,
that's
the way
a lot
that
to accept.
Well, the way that the authority works, because we can talk about interpreting the Bible and this interpretation versus this interpretation, but I think the Catholic position is basically that once you have the authority in place, it doesn't really necessarily matter in some cases what the interpretation could be. It's really just what the Catholic Church teaches. So if you're convinced of that, I think the rest kind of follows.
Yeah, that makes sense. Bree asks, what denomination did you grow up?
We would kind of be classified as non-denominational, but I would say more charismatic. So if you're familiar with charismatic, those are the really weird churches. They're like
I love my charismatic friends.
Praying like, yes, getting slain in the spirit, laying on the ground, people laughing and, speaking in tongues, and people getting drunk in the spirit, which would basically be them acting drunk. Or,
well, I mean, if you come from a Protestant denomination where you can't drink, that's the best you got. I'm sorry, I'm not making light of it.
No.
I am making light of it, but I was trying to be funny.
Well, to me, it was like, because I know some people who would act that way, and I always was wondering in my mind, I was like, are they trying to act this way, or is it? I don't really understand it. I think, would say that they weren't acting, but I guess I'm still kind of convinced that they were. But that's how I grew up. Was very, very charismatic, and that's kind of what has really shaped my view of Christianity today. I'm so interested in apologetics because I was like not fed any of that when I was growing up, and so I have such a passion for it now to share that with people who were like myself before I became aware of philosophy or theology or anything.
Jesse asks, Cameron, do you worry about your family, your wife's family's reaction if you converted? She did. Jesse did. So I guess Jesse's a convert.
Oh, she says she did. Okay. I'm a little worried about it. I'm not super worried about it because I think we already talked about this. It would basically just be a conversation. Be like, look, I'm convinced that this is the truth, and that's all that it comes down to. It comes down to this is the evidence. And so do you have like something we can talk about, some tangible thing that, some objection that you have to converting to Catholicism that I haven't already thought through myself? So it might, what did I say? It would be inconvenient. I think it would be more just, that would be the worry, is like, how do we work all this out? And if, like, for instance, if my wife didn't feel like converting or she didn't think it was true, that might make things more complicated. Having a Protestant wife and myself being Catholic, like, what do we do with the kids? Do I take them to mass with me?
Yeah.
Do I let her take the kids? Like, what do we do at that point? So I think it would just complicate things, but only the Lord knows what's going to happen.
Warrior Woman says, new to channel from Sydney, Australia. Hi, Warrior Woman. I was born in Sydney and am clearly from Australia, so glad to have you here. KV Art says, I also grew up charismatic, non-denominational, but went to Catholic school and did all the sacraments and was baptized Catholic at age 4, made my way back across the Tiber. I love the Eucharist. Do you know what that means when they say back across the Tiber?
No.
It's the river that separates Rome from the Vatican. So when people say you're swimming the Tiber, it means you're gradually, All right. Let's see here. Jimmy Woods says, Matt, would love to see you take Cameron to a Latin Mass to compare it to the Eastern Rite and do another video like this. That would be really cool. I think you'd find that really interesting. It's like full-on Latin. The chant is more beautiful.
At a Latin service?
It's more beautiful.
Oh, interesting.
Than where we went. Yep.
Why? People
because
are better
they have a trained choir, whereas at our church the chant is very simple. I think it was originally simple, perhaps for simple people, and that's why there's a lot of repetition too. You've noticed, like, how many times can you say "Lord have mercy"? But so we should do that next time you're here. Take you to a Latin Mass. I think you'd find it is incredibly beautiful, and as I said to you, I mean the church is universal. We don't. It's there's different expressions and different what do you say, cultural expressions that anyway. All right, let's see here. Brando says, Matt Frad, what would you think to hear the pastors of your church say they have a live studio audience after opening back up? I'm not sure how to feel about that. Yeah, I don't like that because it sort of seems to legitimize staying home from Holy Mass when attending Holy Mass as a Catholic is obligatory, unless you have a serious reason not to. But simply saying, we've got a live studio audience, gives the impression that you can come or not come, and it doesn't really matter.
Let's do that one. We can do that one too.
Oh, okay. Cameron, have you ever prayed the Holy Rosary?
No.
Do it. Do it.
I don't even know what it is, to be honest.
We'll talk about that later.
Do this one.
This one?
Yeah. The reason why I want to put this one up is because I am very against caricaturing beliefs, or like not representing them accurately. And I think this is a caricature of Catholic belief. being Mary worshipers.
Yeah. Yeah, because
I think that there's a reverence. I mean, and you even said that in the Bible, all generations will call me blessed. So, and we're gonna probably talk about this in a later stream that we do. But anyways, what are your thoughts?
My thoughts are that this is very much a caricature, and if this person was interested in understanding what Catholics believe, and he might not be, but if he was interested, he would see very quickly that Catholics do not worship Mary. They
pay respect.
To worship someone is to attribute divinity to that person, and Mary is a human being. She is next to nothing or nothing itself compared to He who is, as St. Louis de Montfort said. So any beauty and virtue that Mary has comes from God. It's sort of like how the moon has a sort of beauty and brilliance to it, but it's only because of the sun. It has no beauty on its own, and we would say the same thing about Mary. And so you could criticize Catholics for praying to Mary, for lighting candles before Mary, for calling her Mother of God, but if you're going to criticize Catholics, at least know what you're bloody talking about. I think that would be a good thing.
Yeah, I just think it's important to take it seriously.
All right, let's see. Cameron, would you tell me whatever you want to take here?
Oh, that one's a good one.
This one?
Yeah, icons.
Cameron, what are your thoughts on different icons or artwork of the church?
I think icons are cool and okay.
Next question. All right.
I think, yeah. I mean, I could see myself having one or two, because you're not worshiping a picture,
right?
And it's just a picture.
Cameron, have you, says Amy Wheeler, ever read Scott Hahn? Have you heard of Scott Hahn?
Nope.
He's a very famous convert from Calvinism to Catholicism. He wrote a book called Rome, Sweet Home. Mm-hmm. It's about his journey to the Catholic Church, where he writes one chapter and his wife Kimberly writes the second chapter about their journey. She asked if you've read it. I assume you haven't. That's why I told you what it was about.
Yeah, I have not.
You're funny if at the end of that you're like, yeah, I've read it. Feel free to... There's a lot of people writing great questions in here.
That one's a good one.
This one?
Yeah. From Dominic.
Cameron, were there things you were expecting to see at Mass that you didn't, like misconceptions you grew up believing about Catholics?
Was there anything that I was expecting to see that I didn't? Mary worship, maybe.
Yes.
I didn't. Yeah. No. I think that
the
only thing that I heard about Mary was a prayer. Was it part of the prayer?
Yeah. It's very infrequent, but yeah, she's referred to as the Theotokos.
And it was like, I think there was an icon of Mary up at the icon. What is it called?
The Iconostasis.
The
the icon wall. Yeah.
There was a icon of Mary there, but it wasn't like, yeah. There wasn't this whole... Now, one thing that I didn't see was like a confession booth or what.
So confession booths are more popular in Western churches, whereas
that might be in line with this question. Not necessarily that I didn't like, but
no, you're right. If you went to like a traditional Western Catholic church, like in Rome or Notre Dame or anywhere really, you would see confession booths. Mm-hmm. There was an icon room, like a small...
I did see that.
That's where I go to confession.
Okay.
That's where my children go to confession.
How do you schedule those?
It's usually half hour prior to Divine Liturgy. Father is available, or anytime you just give him a call.
Okay.
So I'll take my entire family there, and one at a time we'll all go in. And what's really cool about confession is there is nothing that you can say to the priest that the priest can then divulge under any circumstances, whatever. So it's almost
like an attorney.
Yeah, but even more strict, because if I tell an attorney that I'm going to kill somebody, would the attorney be able to divulge that information? Whereas the priest
Maybe
can't,
so.
you know? Or if I've even hurt somebody, it will hurt myself. So, for example, if my wife took my son to confession and I called up the priest and said, have you seen my wife or Liam? And they both went to confession. He might dodge the question. Or if he didn't, he might say, yes, I did, but he wouldn't tell me they went to confession. He wouldn't even say that. You know, like it's that kind of seal of the confessional, they call it, so that people can feel free to just
spill your
repent.
guts.
Yeah,
I really like that too. I like the whole idea of that's one thing that my wife and I guess disagree with about related to Catholicism.
Yeah,
about confession. I think that's actually kind of healthy, and there's not enough of it in Protestantism. There's really none of it. It's like, who do you confess to?
Well, I think
you just keep it all in.
I think the Protestant would say you confess to Christ, and
Yeah,
so
but
the idea of going through a man.
Yeah, but how often do you actually do that, honestly? And when you do it with another person, I think there's different things that can happen.
There's definitely a psychological effect.
Yeah.
Like I when I commit sins that I'm like deeply ashamed about, that I'm wouldn't have even told you, or I don't want anyone to know, or I'm just embarrassed at my own ego or pride or lust or whatever. Imagine going to somebody, and the way it works is you kneel down and you face the icon of Christ and you confess to Christ. So you're not really confessing to the priest so much as you confess to Christ. And then after that, the priest will give you some advice and a penance to perform, like say 3 Hail Marys or do this for your family. And then he lays his stole over your head, and it represents the Holy Spirit kind of coming down, and he absolves you. It's a really, whatever you think about it, even if you think it's kind of illegitimate or if it downplays.
That sounds beautiful.
Yeah, it is pretty beautiful. Man, there's so many questions.
Yeah.
Feel free to.
Let's get to a couple more because we got some other things to do here.
And we can tell everyone. If we're doing this on your channel next, we can tell them to go over there.
Yeah, we're about to.
Ooh.
Why don't we do that?
Oh, yeah, we can do that. All right, so everybody who's watching, here's what we're about to do. We are about to run a video on Cameron Bertuzzi's channel called Capturing Christianity in the next 5-10 minutes. And I'm going to tell Cameron 7 things he and other Protestants ought to be able to accept even without becoming a Catholic. In other words, if you're a Protestant, you're like, I definitely disagree with the Catholic Church, I could say, okay, well, for now, you could at least accept these things. And so that's what we're going to get to. So thank you so very much for being here. Please like, subscribe, share this video. It really does help us in the algorithm, or at least people say that, and so I figure it's true. I don't know.
It is true.
He told me, so it's true. There. All right, guys, God bless you, and go over to Capturing Christianity's channel, and we will have another fantastic conversation there. Thanks.